In front of 52 people, amid the clinking of glasses and the scent of barbecue drifting across the backyard, my mother stood up, raised her glass of white wine, and turned to my younger sister with a proud, glowing look in her eyes. This is the daughter who has always loved her family. Then she turned to me. Not angry. Not bitter. Just a slight glance, followed by a very faint smile, almost polite. And that one? She's never done a thing to help. No one said anything. No nervous laughter. No glance of disagreement. Just the sound of ice clinking in glasses and me swallowing hard as I stood there, trying to keep my hands from shaking. Welcome to family ashes, where the secrets families hide are set on fire and burned to cinders, and the people you thought were yours are sometimes the first to light the match. If one day you found out your own family had quietly erased you from their story, after all the years you sacrificed, carried, endured, what would you do? Would you stay silent to keep the dinner peaceful? Or would you stand up, walk away, and never come back? Leave a comment if you've ever felt that way. Like the video if something in this story feels a little too familiar. And if you think someone you know needs to hear this, share it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the rawest slices of what people still dare to call family. My name is Natalie Harris. 36 years old. I live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment in Denver, Colorado. The place isn't big, but it's quiet enough for me to hear the coffee machine every morning, and private enough that no one knows who I'm helping or what I'm carrying. I work as an auditor for a mid-sized financial firm, not glamorous, not magazine-worthy, but enough to live, to save, and to take care of a whole family I haven't lived with in over a decade. For 9 years, I quietly covered everything: the mortgage on my parents' aging home in Aurora, the electricity, water bills, medical costs for my dad when he slipped in the backyard last year, and even tuition for Chloe, my younger sister, when she decided to rediscover herself by going back to school to learn how to make artisanal candles after dropping out of yoga certification. No one asked. No one refused. They just received. And I, for reasons I no longer care to explain, just kept sending money, again and again, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Chloe is 4 years younger than me. Wavy blonde hair, soft voice like whipped cream, she's the kind of person people say has healing energy. She's done a bit of everything: yoga, acting, then moved back in with our parents to open a candle shop in their garage. At one point, she tried painting abstract art to sell online, but mostly, she lives on affirmations, handmade picture frames, and the belief that with enough love, everything will work out. I don't hate Chloe. Honestly, I don't. I just used to believe that everyone in the family was doing their part to keep things afloat. But turns out, some roles are easier to love than others. And some people, like me, are remembered not for what they did, but for what they didn't, like not being in a photo collage. The lodge sat tucked against Bear Lake, surrounded by sun-drenched pines in Utah. They'd used it years ago for a distant cousin's wedding, and again for a few of those eat together, pretend we like each other reunions. This year, they picked it again. Nearly 50 people came, like a flock of migratory birds. Some drove 10 hours from Nevada. Some brought dogs, tents, even box fans. The grown-ups prepped food, the kids ran around kicking soda cans. There was country music blasting from a Bluetooth speaker, long tables with red and white checkered tablecloths, and a bowl of potato salad no one touched twice. I was a little late. 15 minutes past the start time. Not because of traffic. Not because I forgot. I just sat in my car a little longer than usual, hesitating, staring at the crudely painted wooden sign that read "Welcome Harris Family." I saw my name there, generic, invisible, and I thought, maybe this year will be different. Maybe this time I'll be greeted like a real part of the group, not just the walking wallet. I brought an envelope with me. Inside was a gift card for dinner at Le Jardin, a French restaurant in the heart of downtown Denver. The kind of place my parents always said, someday we'll go there, every time we drove by. They never booked a reservation. Sometimes it was too expensive, sometimes it was Chloe's schedule. I'd made the reservation 3 weeks in advance, requested the table near the window overlooking the grape arbor, and asked the restaurant to prepare a small vase of lavender for the table. The gift wasn't extravagant, wasn't flashy, but I thought, maybe this time, just this once, it would make them genuinely smile. I spotted Chloe from across the lawn. White dress, hair down, smiling at everyone like she just stepped out of a campaign for conscious living. She held a gift wrapped in gold tissue with a satin ribbon. I didn't think much of it. Chloe always had a gift. Chloe always knew how to show up at the right moment, to laugh at the right volume, to hug just long enough to make people believe everything would be okay. I quietly slipped my envelope under my parents' dinner plate, no announcement, no flair, just like I'd done everything else for nearly a decade. By dinner time, they brought out Southern-style barbecue, grilled corn, baked beans, and that sweet bread I always found too bland. The air was full of laughter, clinking glasses, and half-drunk uncles telling half-remembered stories. I began to think maybe I'd been wrong to doubt, maybe this time really would be fine. Then Chloe stood up. Someone handed her a microphone. I don't know who or why, but the way she took it, like her hand had been waiting for that moment, said everything. She smiled gently. I wasn't planning to say anything, but I have a small gift for our parents. Her voice was soft and poised, the kind people like to hear in motivational videos. She unwrapped the paper, and I saw the frame. A photo collage. Carefully chosen images, a birthday on the beach, Christmas in the living room, a candid from the balcony at home, my parents and Chloe, all smiling, arms around each other. I wasn't in any of them. Not in the center. Not at the edge. Not even cropped out. Just, not there. My mother took the frame with both hands, like she was holding something sacred. She stared at it for a long time. Then she stood, raised her glass to chest level, her voice clear and full of emotion. This is the daughter who's always loved her family. The table applauded. A few scattered ahs. I sat still, watching my own hands curl into fists in my lap. Then my mother turned to me. Not loud. Not angry. Just calm, almost serene. And that one? She's never done a thing to help. I don't remember what anyone said after that. Someone dropped a fork. Someone cleared their throat. But no one spoke up. No one asked for clarification. No one looked confused. Just me, sitting there, feeling cold in the middle of July. I stood up. Didn't slam the table. Didn't throw a glass of wine. Didn't offer a dramatic goodbye. I just stood. The way you leave a dinner you were never really invited to. My chair made a soft sound as I pushed it back, enough for a few people to glance my way, but no one stopped me. No one called out. No eyes widened with concern or regret. As if they'd all been waiting for this moment, the moment I'd quietly walk away so they could return to the easier version of the evening, the one where no one had to acknowledge that I'd ever really been there. I walked past rows of folding tables, trays of food now cooling, past the laughter of relatives who couldn't remember where I'd gone to elementary school. Past my sister, head bowed in mock embarrassment, her hand still resting lightly on Mom's shoulder like a stamp of affirmation. I didn't look at them. Not because I was angry, but because I knew if I turned around, I'd see my own face reflected in their eyes as something unnecessary. And I was too tired to keep pretending I belonged. My car was parked near the edge of the woods, under a patch of dried chestnut trees. I opened the door, slid into the driver's seat, but didn't start the engine right away. I rested my hands on the wheel, staring through the windshield at the glow of yellow string lights still twinkling in the distance, tiny dots in a picture I was never meant to be part of. I sat there 5 minutes. Then 10. I didn't cry. Didn't call anyone. I just let myself be still, like I was trying to teach my body, from this moment on, we are not going back. On the drive back to Denver, I didn't turn on the radio. No podcasts, no background music, nothing. I let the sound of the engine be the only thing filling the silence. And in that silence, the numbers began to appear, like an endless balance sheet, not on a client's screen, but in my own memory, $980 per month for the mortgage, starting from when my dad lost his job in 2014 all the way until he found a part-time one at the town library. $120 every time Chloe needed a quick loan to cover tuition for her candle-making class or to buy supplies to restart her Etsy shop. $3,000 for my mom's outpatient surgery that insurance didn't cover because she forgot to renew it. $160 per month for the gas card, under my name, so they could fill 3 tanks a week. Some months I paid the car insurance, the roof repair after a storm. Once, Chloe cried on the phone because unpaid tuition was keeping her from registering for the next session. I wired the money in under 10 minutes. When I added it all up, the big things and the little things I never even tracked, the total was over $148,000. All of it silent. All of it invisible. Not a single official thank you. Not a single card. Not once did someone say, "You kept this whole family from falling apart." When I got back to my apartment, I didn't turn on the lights. I took off my shoes, walked straight to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and stood there for a long time, my hand resting on the granite counter like the floor might suddenly give way beneath me. I didn't feel angry. I thought I might feel a sharp sting, maybe shame, maybe disappointment. But I didn't. I just felt done. Like someone had just pulled a plug from the wall, and everything, including emotion, had shut off. I went to the living room and opened my laptop. Not to write anything. I just logged into my bank accounts, one by one. I stopped the automatic transfer for my parents' mortgage. I canceled the secondary credit card my mom used to book her end-of-year vacation. I shut down the utility account under my name, the one I'd quietly paid for 8 years because they must have forgotten again. I revoked access to the shared account Chloe used to shop on Amazon during big sales. I cut off the gas card. I changed the password to the email that held all my financial logins, the one my mom had once borrowed and never gave back. Everything. Clean. Final. No hesitation. No announcements. I didn't do it out of spite. I didn't want them to suffer. I did it because I understood, crystal clear, that if I'd been written out of their story so effortlessly, I didn't need to keep funding a role that no longer existed. I had no reason to keep the machine running if I'd already been removed from the list of acknowledged contributors. I never wanted praise. Never asked for glory. I just wanted to be recognized, that I was there. That I existed. That if anyone had kept that roof from caving in, the least they could do was not say I'd never done anything. That night, I took a longer shower than usual. Not because I was exhausted, but because it was the first time I didn't feel the need to check my phone to see if someone had asked whether the money had come through yet. I climbed into bed, set my alarm 2 hours later than normal, and slept. No tossing. No dreams. No waking in the middle of the night with that creeping anxiety that I'd forgotten to send a payment. I slept like someone who, for the first time in 9 years, got to just be a person, not a human ATM with feelings. And the strangest thing was, I didn't feel guilty. I was standing in the kitchen when the doorbell rang. Not urgent or frantic, just one long, firm chime, like the person outside knew exactly what they were waiting for. I didn't go right away. I stayed still holding the glass of water I hadn't finished, watching through the small curtain window by the microwave. The day was pale and overcast, but the silhouettes of the 2 people on the porch were clear as day. My mom, slender frame, wrapped in the light beige cardigan she always wore when she wanted to look fragile, deserving of forgiveness. Her hair was loose, her cream-colored flats worn at the heel. My dad stood slightly behind her, hands in his pockets, shoulders slumped. Looking at them from inside my home, I didn't feel anger. Just distance. As if the 2 people who had given birth to me and called me daughter for over 30 years were now standing outside, asking permission to enter a stranger's house. I went to open the door. I didn't chain the lock. Didn't turn on the porch light. We just stood there, me inside the doorway, them in the sunlight. "Can we talk for a moment?" my mother began, her voice lower than I remembered. She didn't smile, didn't try to make it sound light. There was a flicker of worry in her eyes, like she wasn't sure whether I'd shut the door on them. "I just want to clear up a misunderstanding." I leaned gently against the doorframe, arms crossed over my chest, looking straight at her. We can talk right here. I didn't invite them in. Not because I wanted to shame them, but because I couldn't let them step into the one space that had been my only refuge, away from demands, midnight phone calls, emails titled urgent, can't wait until tomorrow. This was the space I had built myself. And they had stepped out of it the night my mother raised her glass, pointed at Chloe, and erased me from the family with one sentence. My mother glanced around hesitantly. That tentative posture, I'd seen it many times before, whenever she wanted to apologize without actually admitting she was wrong. She took a quiet breath, then said, about what happened at the reunion. I didn't mean to say it that way. It's just, everyone was watching. Chloe had just given us the photo. I got emotional, and her voice trailed off. I just misspoke. I didn't smile. Didn't scoff. Didn't frown. I simply nodded, like someone reviewing a financial report with missing columns. Misspoke, I repeated. In front of 52 people. My father spoke for the first time since arriving. We didn't think you would react like this. I looked at him. So silence would have been fine, right? As long as I kept paying. As long as the bills were covered, the loans approved, then it didn't matter if I was erased from the family photo? No one answered. I stood up straight, pulled my phone from my pocket, opened the Notes app, the one where I had typed every expense, big and small, at 2 a.m. the night I got home from the reunion. I didn't show them the screen. I just read it aloud, $83,400 for the mortgage, $21,600 for utilities, $11,100 for medical bills, tests, medications, including 2 hospital stays for Dad's hypertension, $5,700 for Chloe's candle-making classes, meditation workshops, then a small business course. $3,900 for car maintenance, gas cards, insurance. And over $20,000 in miscellaneous things I no longer remember. Total, $148,000. In 9 years. I said it all, left nothing out. Let no emotion interfere. When I finished, my mother looked down at the ground. My father glanced at me, then away. I knew they remembered, not every transaction, but the times they asked, "Can you help with this?" and I had never once said no. And after all that, I went on, you stood up, raised your glass, and said I'd never helped. In front of the whole family. And no one objected. No one looked surprised. No one turned to look at me. Which means, to them, it made perfect sense. I didn't need them to explain. I didn't need to hear, we were caught up in the moment, or Chloe's going through a hard time. They had chosen to erase me easily, with a single sentence, without thinking that it would unravel 10 years of quiet sacrifice. No one is required to understand me. But they were given a choice. And they chose to stand with the applause behind the photo frame. Finally, I said, not angry, not loud, just clear, if what I've done isn't enough to be considered part of this family, then from now on, I won't continue paying to keep that role alive. This isn't punishment. It's just clarity. I closed the door. Slowly. Not with force, but with finality. Outside, the sun was still shining. But inside me, finally, it had started to go cold again. I was wiping down the kitchen counter when the doorbell rang. Not a long chime, not impatient, just 2 short, firm ding-dongs. Like a reminder. Like the person outside was sure they still had a right to be here. I dried my hands with a towel and didn't rush. The small side window looked out onto the steps out front. Chloe. Tote bag slung over one shoulder, wearing slip-on sandals, hair thrown into a loose bun, wrinkled t-shirt. Her face was tense, but not falling apart. Still Chloe, the kind of person who could turn a collapse into a healing experience. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. She walked in anyway, like she was returning to someplace that had always belonged to her. But this wasn't her home anymore. It wasn't the bedroom where she used to borrow my lipstick without asking. It wasn't the kitchen where I used to make her tea whenever she couldn't breathe from anxiety. This was my space. Paid for with my salary, my overtime, my exhaustion. And now, I stood in the center of it, not stepping back, not stepping aside. "Do you even know what you're doing?" she asked immediately. No preamble. Her voice was a little louder than usual, but not sharp. Like someone who just got thrown off a train they thought they had a lifetime ticket for. "You're not answering texts. You're not picking up the phone. Mom and Dad called me 14 times this morning. They think something happened to you. They thought you were just mad. But then the payments didn't come in. The accounts got locked. The cards were declined. They're panicking." I stood still, listening. No reaction. I was too used to this rhythm, someone arriving, chaos in hand, wondering why I hadn't fixed it yet. I had to work an extra shift yesterday. Mom and Dad said I need to help now. She said it like an accusation. Like the fact that she had to earn money was a kind of betrayal. "You know they've depended on you for years. And now you just cut it all off. What even is this?" I sat down in a chair, arms crossed. "Because they chose it." Chloe furrowed her brow, confused. Or maybe just unwilling to understand. "Chose what?" "Chose you," I said, slowly. "Right in front of 52 people. Mom raised her glass, looked at you like you were a prize, and turned to me and said I'd never helped. No one said a word. No one objected. You didn't either." She shook her head. I was surprised. I didn't think Mom would say that. But you didn't correct her," I cut in. "You smiled. You bowed your head, all shy. You took the praise like it belonged to you. You let me sit there like a stranger in my own family. And then you watched me walk away and never once asked why." The air between us slowed. Chloe turned her face slightly. I couldn't tell if it was shame or if she was preparing her next offense. "It's not black and white," she said, more quietly. "You know how Mom is, she doesn't think things through. She just gets caught up in the emotion." I nodded. "And you get caught up in the performance. The role of the beloved daughter. The one in the photo frame. The one all the relatives nod about when they hear her name." "I didn't ask for this," she whispered. "But you didn't refuse it, either," I replied. "You let it happen. And when I disappeared, you didn't come looking. You only came back when something stopped working, when the system I'd kept running started glitching, when the walls cracked and you realized you didn't know how to patch them." She looked at me then, eyes starting to well up. But I didn't soften. Not because I wanted to hurt her. But because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't the one biting my tongue just to keep the peace. "You're mad I left Mom and Dad hanging," I said, voice slow and steady. "But really, I'm just acting like what they believe is true, that I never helped. So now, they can learn to manage without the invisible hand. And you can finally do what you've always been praised for being so good at, loving them." Chloe didn't respond. A tear rolled down one cheek, but she didn't wipe it away. She just stood there, like she was finally realizing that some roles, once you accept them, come with real responsibilities. A minute later, she turned, walked to the door. No slamming. No final word. Just left, as if she was stepping into a world where, for the first time, she had to pay her own bills. I stayed in the middle of the room. Not relieved. Not victorious. But not regretful either. Just still. The kind of stillness that comes when you've stopped being the scaffolding for a family. And you realize, if you're not holding it all up anymore, they'll either learn to stand, or they'll fall. I thought things would go quiet after that confrontation. I figured maybe they'd stay silent for a while, figure things out, tuck away their embarrassment into the stories they told neighbors, stories I was never a character in. But then, on a Wednesday morning, while I was filing receipts into the drawer, a notification popped up from the Harris Family Forever Facebook group. I hadn't meant to click on it. But my hand moved before my logic could stop it. My mother had posted a clear, well-lit photo. Everyone was smiling in front of the lakeside lodge, like they'd just wrapped up the perfect vacation. They stood in a neat row, my parents, Chloe, a few aunts and uncles, a handful of cousins. And me? I wasn't there. Not a single gap where I could even be imagined into place. I wasn't in the picture, just like I hadn't been in the thank you speech that night. The caption was in my mother's usual tone, just sentimental enough, just sweet enough to warm anyone who didn't know better. Family is everything. Even when someone forgets that. I wasn't surprised. But there was still a sting. Not pain. Not betrayal. Just cold. Like a clean slice from a pair of sharp scissors through a quilt you thought was still intact. Right below the post, the relatives began commenting. An aunt on my dad's side wrote, "You're right. Family is where it begins, and where it ends." A cousin I was never close with dropped a heart emoji. Someone else commented, "Every family has someone who drifts. But love will always wait for them to come back." I read every single comment. Not because I was looking for my name. But because I needed to be sure no one would speak the truth. And I was right. They chose the easier path, pretend I never existed. I didn't comment. I didn't post a rebuttal. I didn't react with an angry face or write some vague status about being forgotten. Instead, I opened my laptop. Not to argue, but to do what I've always done best: reconcile, compile, list. I dug up every email receipt from the past 9 years. Digital bank statements. Screenshots of wire transfers. Thank you emails from doctors' offices. Utility bills, electric, water, gas. Texts from Chloe, asking for help when her account went negative. Tuition confirmations. Last-minute flight bookings. Each tiny, scattered piece of evidence, when strung together, told a story they had never bothered to tell. I gathered them all into one single post. No caption. No call-out. No dramatics. Just images. Each image a payment. Each payment a part of my life that was never acknowledged. And finally, I added one single line. Total expenses over 9 years, $148,330. No expectations. No demands. No regrets. But also, no more. I set the post to public. Didn't tag anyone. Didn't mention my mother. Didn't refer to the reunion. Didn't say the caption was about me. Because they knew. They all knew. And I didn't need to underline the obvious. I posted it at 10:42 a.m., closed my laptop at 10:45. No refreshing. No waiting. I made lunch, cleaned the bathroom, watered the plants, changed the sheets. Small, quiet things, the opposite of what I had done for 9 years to keep a crumbling structure from collapsing. That afternoon, I checked my phone again. The post had been shared. Not by me, but by the people who'd once sat quietly as my mother erased me in public. Someone messaged, "I had no idea you did all that." A cousin wrote, "I'm sorry I didn't say anything that night." Someone sent a crying face emoji. Another sent a Bible verse about forgiveness. And my mother? Not a word. Not a response. Not even a deleted post. Hers was still up, as if I had disappeared for no reason at all. Then came a message from Chloe. No punctuation. No emoji. Just 3 cold, dry words. "We need to talk." I stared at that line on my screen for a long time. Not because I was going to respond. But because I knew, for the first time in her life, Chloe wasn't reaching out because she wanted love. She was reaching out because she finally realized, when the one holding the center falls, everything else begins to crumble. I thought they wouldn't come back. I figured after that post, after Chloe's message, after all the heavy silence between people who used to call each other family, the story would end there. No closure needed. No apologies. Just each person quietly stepping back. But then they came back. No drama. No warning. No longer carrying the posture or pride of people who believed they were right. Just 3 figures standing on my porch on a gray afternoon, like they'd just come through a winter without heat. I saw them through the kitchen window. My mother stood in the middle, smaller than I remembered, her hair a mess, her face like she hadn't slept in weeks. She wore that same old cardigan, once her emotional armor, now wrinkled and shapeless. My father stood a little behind, hands in his pockets, worn sneakers, shoulders hunched like his old back pain had returned. Chloe stood to the side, her faded tote bag slung across her body, dark circles under her eyes, and a face that had nothing left to hold up. No light. No hope. No healing daughter energy. She looked like someone who'd been thrown into reality without time to prepare. I opened the door, but didn't step outside. I didn't invite them in. Didn't shake hands. Didn't smile, not even politely. I just stood there, one hand on the doorframe, keeping the line drawn, as if to remind them, this was where I'd learned how to breathe, after I stopped being the emergency lung for the entire family. My mother spoke first, as she always did when she was the designated spokesperson for the household's emotions. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice almost without tone. "We shouldn't have said those things. Shouldn't have stayed silent. Shouldn't have left you alone." My father said nothing. Just looked down at the tips of his shoes. Chloe didn't interrupt. She stayed silent too, but not defensive. Not trying to explain. No longer wearing the expression of "I didn't know" or "I didn't mean to." For the first time, my sister came to me without a costume. I didn't nod. Didn't pretend to forgive. Didn't hide in the kind of silence my family used to treat as resolution. I just looked at them, for a long time. Then I said, not loudly, not gently, just clearly, "I'm not the daughter who endures anymore. Not the one who keeps everything upright in silence. Not the name that only gets mentioned when a bill's due." My mother hesitated. Maybe she was waiting for me to soften. Maybe she hoped I'd offer her a way out. But I didn't. I wasn't here to lighten anyone's load anymore. Chloe lowered her head. Her hand tightened around the strap of her bag, like she was steadying herself. "I moved out," she said after a long pause. "I got my own place. It's small, but I'm managing." I didn't ask, "Are you okay?" That question had once been my responsibility for a lifetime. Now, I returned it to the world. A month later, I heard my parents had listed the house. Not because they told me, but because a relative sent me a photo of the for sale sign staked in their lawn. That house, the one I'd quietly paid the mortgage on for nearly a decade, the one I carried with overtime, skipped meals, broken sleep. They sold it below market price, because they needed to move fast. They downsized to a rental in the outskirts, a rundown complex, thin walls, flickering hallway lights like a scene from a low-budget film. I didn't visit. Didn't look back. I only knew because that same cousin sent me another photo, my mother watering a wilted plant in front of the new unit, dry soil, water dripping in slow, reluctant drops. Chloe was still in her rented place. A small studio, not even 500 square feet, in the southern part of the city. She worked at a cafe. Occasionally posted stories about selling candles again, but no more healing hashtags or captions about gratitude. Short stories. Fewer words. Faded colors. I didn't unfollow her. But I didn't interact either. I just saw it and left it alone. And me? I kept living. No neat ending. No TV reunion. I just lived, without having to explain myself, without needing to justify my absence. I didn't need to revisit the old house, or ask myself if I'd gone too far. Because I knew, the price of long silence is that someone like me can be erased from a story, even after giving nearly a lifetime to it. I'm not angry at them anymore. But I'm not with them either. I don't tell this story for pity. I tell it so someone might hear their own voice in it, in the quiet suffering, in the role that never ends, in the silences we endure because we think we're the understanding one. I stepped out. And this time, I left nothing behind. I used to think I would keep all of this to myself. That silence was the least painful way to end a relationship that had already cracked long ago. But when you stay silent for too long, people forget that you have a voice. That you are also a daughter, a sister, a part of the family portrait they proudly hang up every Thanksgiving. I used to be in that picture, somewhere in it. But one day, I realized I had been erased, and no one even bothered to pick up the eraser. And you know what? The thing that hurt me most wasn't the sentence, "She's never done anything," said in front of 52 people. It was the fact that no one thought it was wrong. No one flinched. No one turned to me and said, "That's not true. She's always been there." They said nothing, because to them, my silence meant agreement. Meant invisibility. I used to carry it all, believing, if I don't help, then who will? I used to convince myself, this is just how families are. Some people sacrifice, and some people are loved. But eventually, I understood, if the only time you're allowed to stay in a family is when you're still paying, still carrying the load, still giving up space so someone else can shine, that's not love. That's exploitation. And there is no birth certificate sacred enough to turn exploitation into affection. Some people grow up believing that family is forever. That no matter how wrong you are, how tired you get, someone will always open the door for you to come home. But others, like me, learn through the nights when no one checks in, through the bills we print and pay in silence, through the photo sessions we pay for but never appear in, that family is not always a place you come home to. Sometimes, it's the place you have to leave, to save yourself. Real love doesn't come with conditions. It's not a paycheck. It's not monthly wire transfers. It's not being the understanding one or the reliable one. Real love is being allowed to exist without having to prove your worth. It's being acknowledged without having to hold the roof up alone. And if a bond only exists when you pay to keep your place in it, then maybe it never really existed at all. I don't need them to apologize anymore. I don't need them to take the post down, rewrite the speech, or reframe the past. I don't need anything from them. Because for the first time in my life, I have something I used to think was a luxury, the quiet that comes from no longer owing anyone anything in the family I once tried so hard to hold together. I don't tell this story to be pitied. I tell it so that if you, somewhere, are stuck playing a role you never chose, living like a shadow beneath someone else's spotlight, giving parts of yourself away every month to keep a family from collapsing while no one even knows your name, you'll know that you're not crazy. You're not overly sensitive. You're not ungrateful. You're just someone who has endured enough. Share this story if you've ever been the one carrying the whole family in silence. You don't need to explain. Just tell it, so someone else might see themselves in it. And if you never have, pause for a moment and ask yourself, is there someone in your life who might be doing that for you right now? Not complaining. Not demanding. Not drawing attention. Just quietly keeping everything from falling apart. If you want to follow stories like this, real ones, not the kind that fit inside greeting cards, subscribe to the Family Ashes channel. Because here, we don't tell fairy tales. We tell what really happened. The things that, sometimes, only one person in the whole family dares to say out loud.